How to make surround sound speakers wireless. How do you do it? So for a long time, I researched how to make my surround sound speakers wireless. And it took me a long time to come up with a solution that worked for me. For you, also, you may be looking for different reasons. Maybe you can't run cables to the back of the lounge where you want the speakers to be. Maybe you're in a rental accommodation, which means you can't just drill holes in walls, or maybe you own your own house and you still don't want to be drilling holes in walls and things. And maybe you just can't get that precious PAF factor or WAF factor, which, as we all know, is the partner acceptance factor, to tell you that you can run cables all the way around the side of the lounge, the living room, the home theater, speaker room, where you are. Off the shelf, there are a few brands that are starting to do this really quite well using wireless technology. And typically you're going to be walking into the Bose systems, the Sonos systems, even Vizio have a great surround wireless system. But the challenge is you may not like that sound signature, or you may already have speakers that you've spent money on which you really like, which in my case was true. So that leaves you with how do you take your existing speakers and make them wireless rather than buying a whole new system. If you've looked at Bluetooth, you know that it's really not much of an option. If your room is even of a modest size, you run into difficulties running a signal that far and having confidence that it's going to work as you want it to work. It's a bit hit and miss, so immediately we're going to put that on the side and really just not go there. The third option that we really run into, which is where I ended up, is buying an off-the-shelf speaker wireless connection kit. And there's a few companies that do this, and I'll list them all below. The one that I ended up with was the Amphony, but Rocketfish do one, SVS do one for their subwoofers, which can in theory also double for speakers. And there's also a TP-Link one. What these speakers do is they use a Wi-Fi signal using these units to send a signal from the amp to the back of the room to receivers. It's quite simple. Now, the Amphony unit is the one that I went for based on reviews, and I've had it running now for a couple of years, so I feel like I can speak to it quite confidently. Admittedly, when I first bought it, one of the units was a dud. Amphony immediately replaced that for me, and so boom. This is the Amphony 1800 unit, the 1800 model. And the important thing to note, when you are going to power surround sound speakers, you need to consider a couple of things. The first thing is, if you've got passive rear speakers, you're going to need to power them, and these units do that. So the Amphony 1800 runs 80 watts per channel out of these units to make sure that you've got enough signal in those surrounds to actually put some signal through. The concept with the Amphony is quite simple. There is a transmitter pack, which I'll hold up to you there. It's a slightly older unit. You can see that it has an old iPod kind of connector plug. It has stereo connectors at the back, left, right, left, right. So from your stereo, you would run your left and right rear surround speaker cables into this unit. This unit then has a volume knob and a connector button. And so you could set this, I would say, start at about 50%. That then sends a signal to these, which have power adapters, which I'm not going to bother showing you here because power adapters aren't that interesting. These have power adapters powering them, and then they have, as you can see from the back there, just a stereo left-right. So this would be to power one speaker, and this would be to power the other speaker. There is also a volume control on each of these that you can adjust for sensitivity. So between these two, I would start at about 50%. Now, what about Audyssey, YPAO? Yep, you can absolutely still run your speaker calibration software using these. I've done it with YPAO and with Audyssey, no problem whatsoever. And again, that was just running these at about 50% signal. I know that they do look like they're from the 1980s. Definitely the design leaves a lot to be desired. You do ideally want to have these in line of sight. You can put them on top of your rear surrounds for maximum, signal strength to point to this to have a clear line of sight to make sure that you get maximum signal transference. I actually have them under the couch, just far enough forward that they're just peeking out. You can't really notice them, and they work fine. If there's a something in front of them and then a person and then a beanbag and then something and then the TV, sometimes the signal might drop a bit, but other than that, they run great. How do they sound? Honestly, with surrounds, I think they're fantastic. I've run through a lot of 5.1 and 7.2 setups with them, and had really good effects from movies such as, Triple Frontier, which has a lot going on around you, the Formula One, F1, Drive to Survive series on Netflix, which has phenomenal surround sound. If you've got kids and or if you don't have kids and you like watching Cars 1, 2, and 3, Cars 3, by then the audio is fine-tuned, the sound of the cars coming around the back is really, really great. So even as an audiophile, I would say it's a compromise, but the output is still really quite impressive. Now, I've run these with Q Acoustic 3010s, and I currently run them with the Fluence bipolar rear speakers, and I think they're great. Now, what are the negatives to these? Well, for any of these speaker wireless kits, generally they run on a 2.4 gigahertz signal, which is also similar to Wi-Fi. I find that sometimes it interferes with my Apple TV Bluetooth remote for some reason. Maybe it's all in my head, I don't know, but I think it does. The rears, really, you want to have them powered all the time, so they don't go sleep standby. They're really always on, which I don't love, but if you do turn them off and on, sometimes you get a pop when the power goes out of the unit, which I don't really like putting my speakers through. So I just leave them running all the time. As I say, it's been a couple of years. I don't think they're consuming a lot of wattage, and so that's not really a problem. So between signal and the fact that you've got to run them all the time, other than that, they've been fantastic for me. So that's really a quick summary of the options that you've got if you are trying to make your surround sound speakers wireless. You can buy a system off the shelf that is already designed to do this, but if you don't like the sound signature, the price, or you already have speakers that you like, then this is really your next best option. Third option is going for some flat speaker wire that you can run very craftily just under the edge of your carpet around the side of the house. You could go for ghost flat speaker wire, and we speak about that in another article that we've got as another option. But if wireless is the way that you have to go, then this isn't a bad shot. I would definitely recommend it. We've had it, as I say, running for a couple of years, no problem. That's it for now. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below. Like or subscribe if this was good for you, as it was for me. And if you've got your own suggestions, then please drop those in as well, because I'd love to hear back on any innovations that perhaps I've missed out there on the wire. Have a great day, stay safe, talk soon.